Discovery and awakening. The vast emptiness of uncharted space stretched before Captain Nira as she stood on the command deck of the celestial Voyager, pride of the Zularian exploration fleet. Her scaled skin shimmered under the soft blue lights of the bridge, four pupilless eyes scanning the holographic displays floating before her. 3 standard cycles they had been mapping this region, and 3 cycles of nothing but space dust and unremarkable stellar bodies to show for it. Captain, I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature at coordinates 84 to 27,193, reported Science Officer Thorin, his voice carrying the melodic undertones typical of his Southern Hemisphere heritage. It's faint, but definitely artificial. Nira's head crest flared with interest as she moved to his station. Natural formation. Negative. The signature has patterns consistent with processed alloys and dormant power systems. It's a vessel, and it's massive. The bridge fell silent. The Zularian Concordat had encountered many species during their centuries of space exploration, but finding unknown technology adrift in empty space always triggered both excitement and caution. Put it on the main display, Nira ordered, her second heart quickening its pace. The holographic projection shimmered to life, revealing a silhouette against the backdrop of distant stars. Even from a distance, its purpose was unmistakable. A warship. Unlike the sleek, curved designs of Zularian vessels or the crystalline structures favored by the Altari Dominion, this ship featured sharp angles and imposing weapon emplacements. Its hull was dark, absorbing rather than reflecting the faint starlight, making it appear like a shadow cut from the fabric of space itself. Run a comparison with known vessel profiles, Nira commanded. Thorin's fingered appendages danced across his console. No matches in our database, Captain. However, he paused, his crest rising in surprise. The material composition bears similarities to artifacts recovered from the Epsilon sector. Epsilon. Security Chief Valkyr stepped forward, her hand instinctively moving to the pulse weapon at her hip. Those were classified as human in origin. A collective murmur swept through the bridge. Humans, a species known only through archaeological findings and fragmentary records. A civilization that had apparently reached impressive technological heights before vanishing without explanation nearly 2 centuries ago. Humans, Nira repeated, studying the image closer. Are you certain? The probability is 87.3%, Captain, Thorin confirmed. The alloy composition matches what little we know of their technology. If this was indeed a human vessel, it represented the most significant archaeological find in decades. The Concordat's historical archives contained precious little about humans, only that they had been bipedal, remarkably adaptable, and surprisingly advanced for their brief period of interstellar activity. Prepare a boarding team, Nira decided. I want our best scientists and security personnel. We'll investigate directly. 4 hours later, Nira led a team of 8 across the void between their ship and the derelict vessel. Their shuttle docked with unexpected ease at what appeared to be an external airlock, the design somehow anticipating and adapting to their approach. Fascinating engineering, remarked Thorin, analyzing the readings on his wrist device as they prepared to enter. The docking mechanisms reconfigured to accommodate our shuttle despite being centuries old. Remain alert, warned Valkyr, her security team readying their non-lethal suppressors. We know nothing of human defense systems. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, illuminating a ship interior that seemed frozen in time. Unlike other derelicts they had explored before, there were no signs of battle damage, no emergency evacuations, no indication of what had happened to the crew. Life support systems appear inactive but intact, reported Thorin, consulting his scanner. No toxic elements detected. Atmosphere is thin but breathable with our filters. They moved deeper into the ship, passing through corridors lined with what appeared to be crew quarters and operational stations. Everything was orderly, as if the crew had simply stepped away momentarily. It's as if they just left, whispered Thorin, examining a workspace where tools remained laid out for use. Nira felt a growing unease as they continued toward what sensor readings indicated was the command center. As they navigated the ship's interior, they discovered writing in an unfamiliar script, presumably human language. Thorin recorded everything, his scanner working to build a translation framework based on linguistic fragments recovered from other archaeological sites. The command center was a spacious chamber dominated by control stations arranged in concentric circles around a central elevated platform, clearly the captain's position. Dormant screens and panels lined the walls. "Look at this engineering," breathed Thorin, running his hand over one console. "Intuitive layout, redundant systems. They built this for efficiency in crisis situations." Junior Officer Mira moved to what appeared to be a minor auxiliary station, curiosity overcoming caution. Her three-fingered hand brushed against a panel that suddenly illuminated at her touch. "I didn't," she stammered as lights flickered to life throughout the command center. "Step back," barked Valkyr, raising her weapon. The ship groaned around them as ancient systems awoke from their long slumber. Displays flickered with static before clearing to reveal information in the human script. A deep humming vibrated through the deck plates beneath their feet. "Minimal power restored," announced Thorin, reading from his scanner. "Main systems remain offline, but we have access to some information databases." Nira approached the now active console cautiously. "Can you interpret any of this?" Thorin worked with his translation algorithms. "Partially. This appears to be the ship's designation and status." He paused, his crest fluttering as he processed the information. "It calls itself the TSV Vanguard. According to these logs, it was a vessel of something called the Earth Defense Initiative." "Earth, the human homeworld," murmured Nira. "What else?" "Last log entry dates to, converting to our calendar, approximately 187 years ago. The final command was something called Protocol Lazarus. I cannot determine its meaning yet." Valkyr, who had been scouting the periphery of the command center, called out sharply, "Captain, you should see this." In an adjacent chamber, they found a secure door that had partially opened when the power returned. Beyond it lay a corridor leading deeper into the ship's heart, to areas not shown on the basic schematics they'd mapped. "This section appears to be heavily shielded," noted Thorin. "Our scans couldn't penetrate it from outside." The decision to proceed was made with little discussion. This discovery was too significant to leave unexplored. They followed the corridor to a chamber unlike any other on the ship, a circular room with a single platform at its center, upon which rested what appeared to be a stasis pod of some kind. Unlike the rest of the ship, this chamber showed signs of dedicated power, with tiny lights still blinking on its systems. "Is that a preservation unit?" asked Thorin, approaching cautiously. Nira scanned the pod, her expression shifting to one of shock. "I'm detecting life signs, extremely faint, but present." "Impossible," whispered Valkyr, moving closer to look through the pod's frosted viewport. Through the cloudy surface, they could make out the dim outline of a figure, humanoid, still preserved against time itself, after all these centuries. "No stasis technology can last this long without maintenance," Valkyr insisted. "This one has," replied Thorin. "And according to these readings, whoever or whatever it is inside is still alive." Nira stared at the pod, feeling as though she stood at the threshold of something momentous. After centuries of silence, they had not only found a perfectly preserved human warship, but potentially a living human as well. "Prepare to transfer this pod to our research vessel," she ordered quietly. "Whatever secrets it holds, the Concordat must understand them." She looked around at the ship that had survived against all odds. "I want to know everything about the Vanguard, and why it was left here, waiting." None of them noticed the subtle change in the ship's background systems, the brief flicker of light on a secondary panel, a silent signal broadcasting into the void, announcing that after centuries of sleep, someone had found what had been so carefully hidden. The awakening had begun. The research vessel, Stellar Insight, hummed with activity as scientists from various clans of the Zularian Concordat gathered around the human stasis pod transported from the ghost ship just hours earlier. The ancient device now sat in the center of the main laboratory, surrounded by scanning equipment and curious eyes. Chief Scientist Krall adjusted his optical enhancers, the tendrils on his neck pulsing with excitement. After 20 years of studying fragments of human technology, he finally had something intact, and possibly even a living specimen. Remarkable engineering, he commented, running a scanner over the pod's control systems. Power efficiency beyond anything we've achieved. The cellular degradation is minimal despite centuries of operation. Captain Nira stood at the back of the room, watching with arms crossed. Can you open it safely? Security Chief Valker stepped forward, her tall frame casting a shadow over the pod. Captain, I must again express my concerns. We know humans were a warrior species. If this is some kind of soldier. Your objection is noted. Chief, Nira interrupted, but this discovery is too significant to ignore. If a living human exists, imagine what we could learn about a civilization that vanished at the height of its development. Thorin called out from a nearby console. I think I've decoded their stasis protocol. It's elegant. The pod has a self-contained system that gradually refreshes cellular structures using minimal energy. That's how it lasted so long. Krall moved to examine his findings. Can we access its memory banks without revival? I believe so, Thorin answered, connecting a data bridge to the pod's interface. Their information architecture is surprisingly compatible with our systems, almost as if. A sharp alarm cut through the air as red lights flashed across the pod's surface. The metal shell began to heat rapidly, and vapor escaped from previously invisible seams. What did you do? Demanded Nira, rushing forward. Nothing. Thorin protested, frantically working his console. It's activated some kind of emergency protocol. It thinks the occupant is in danger. Valkyr drew her weapon and barked orders to the security team. Everyone back. Now. The laboratory erupted into chaos as scientists scrambled away from the pod. A countdown appeared on the pod's display in human numerals, quickly translated by the ship's computer. 10 seconds until complete revival. We can't stop it, shouted Krall. The process has safeguards. Interruption would kill the occupant. The countdown reached 0 with a hiss of escaping gas. The pod's top section slid open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic vapor that temporarily obscured its contents. As the mist cleared, they saw a figure lying motionless inside, unmistakably human, just as the old records had described. Bipedal, with bronze skin and dark hair, wearing a form-fitting charcoal gray uniform with silver insignia they couldn't recognize. For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then the human's chest rose sharply as it drew in a deep, gasping breath. Its eyes snapped open, startlingly amber against dark lashes. In a blur of movement that none of them had time to react to, the human was up and out of the pod, moving with impossible speed for someone who had been in stasis for centuries. Before anyone could process what was happening, the human had disarmed the nearest security officer and stood with the weapon trained on the group, back against the wall. Don't move, the human said in a clear, strong voice that the translation system struggled to interpret. The language was recognized as an ancient human dialect, but the accent was unfamiliar. Nira raised her hand slowly. We mean you no harm. I am Captain Nira of the Zularian Concordat. The human's eyes darted around the room, assessing each alien species present, the exits, the equipment. Her gaze, for they now recognized the human as female, settled on the stolen weapon in her hand, examining it briefly before returning to track the group. What year is it? The human demanded. Krell stepped forward cautiously. By your Earth calendar, approximately year 2317. The human's expression remained controlled, but a flicker of shock passed through her eyes. Almost 2 centuries, she murmured, almost to herself. Then, louder, where are we? What sector? Quadrant 4, Sector 17. replied Nira. "Approximately 87 light-years from where we found your vessel, the Vanguard." "The Vanguard," the human said. "Is it intact?" "Yes. We discovered it drifting. You were the only living thing aboard." Something in the human's posture shifted subtly, a minute relaxation that the more observant aliens detected. She lowered the weapon slightly, though still kept it ready. "I am Commander Elena Reeves, Earth Defense Initiative, Special Division Valkyrie." Her amber eyes narrowed. "Where are the other human ships?" "The colonies." A heavy silence fell over the room. Nira glanced at Krall, who gave a small nod. "Commander," Nira said slowly, "according to our historical records, Earth and its colonies fell approximately 187 years ago. There was a cataclysmic event. No human survivors were ever confirmed, until now. Your species was believed extinct." Commander Reeves stared at Nira with an intensity that made the captain's skin prickle beneath her scales. For a moment, she feared the human might attack in denial or rage. Instead, Reeves closed her eyes briefly, her face a mask of control. "Protocol Lazarus," she said quietly. "It was activated then." "We found that term in the ship's logs," Thorin offered cautiously. "What does it mean?" Reeves slowly placed the weapon on a nearby table and stepped away from it, a gesture of trust, albeit a calculated one. "It was our final contingency plan," she explained, her voice steadier now. "When it became clear that Earth would fall, we scattered sleeper ships, colony vessels hidden throughout the galaxy. I was left aboard the Vanguard as Guardian." "Guardian of what?" asked Valkyr, still suspicious. Reeves's eyes met the security chief's. "Of humanity's legacy. And its greatest weapon." "Weapon?" Valkyr tensed again. "Not what you think," Reeves replied. "The Vanguard itself is the weapon, and I am its control system." Krall moved closer, professional curiosity overriding caution. "You were linked to the ship somehow." "Neural integration. Experimental. I was one of 12 successful candidates." Reeves tapped her temple. "My mind was partially merged with the ship's tactical systems. In emergency situations, I could become the ship, directing all systems simultaneously with thought-speed reaction times." The aliens exchanged glances, trying to comprehend what she was describing. None of their species had achieved such integration. "Why were you left in stasis?" Nira asked. Reeves's expression darkened. "Because what destroyed Earth might return. I was left as both warning system and last defense." "What destroyed Earth?" Krall asked, the scientist in him needing to know. "We called them the Void Harbingers," Reeves answered, her voice dropping. "They weren't like you. Physical beings with bodies and ships. They were something else, something that consumed worlds and turned space itself inside out. We fought them for 8 years before Earth fell." As if on cue, an alert sounded throughout the ship. The communications officer's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, urgent transmission from Outpost Thetis on the edge of the Veil Nebula. They're reporting unusual space-time distortions and loss of contact with 3 scout ships." Reeves's head snapped up, eyes suddenly alert and focused. "The Harbingers," she whispered. "They're back." Nira looked at the human with new understanding and growing alarm. This wasn't just a historical discovery anymore. If the human was right, the very threat that had destroyed Earth had returned, and the Concordat had just awakened the only being who knew how to fight them. "I need to return to the Vanguard," Reeves said, all traces of disorientation gone. For the first time in her career, Captain Nira felt truly afraid of what lay ahead. They had found a ghost ship and awakened its occupant, only to discover that both were keys to a war they hadn't known was coming. Legacy and defiance. The conference room aboard the Celestial Voyager buzzed with tension as Captain Nira assembled her senior officers. Commander Elena Reeves sat at the table, her human form drawing curious glances from everyone present. For most, this was their first time seeing a living human, a species previously known only through historical records and archaeological findings. Reports from 2 more outposts confirmed similar disturbances, reported Communications Officer Lyra, her luminescent fingers moving across her datapad. Space-time anomalies followed by loss of contact. Pattern matches the disturbance at Outpost Thetis. Reeves studied the star map projected above the table, her amber eyes tracking the pattern of incidents with grim recognition. "It's them," she said quietly. "The same approach pattern they used in the Sol system. They're testing defenses, looking for weaknesses." Security Chief Valkyr leaned forward, her neck crest rising slightly in agitation. "You speak of these void harbingers, but we have no evidence they even exist. These could be natural phenomena or a known enemy testing new technology." Reeves's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "I watched them consume Mars in hours, Jupiter's moons in days. I lost my entire family on Earth's final evacuation day." She gestured to the map. "This is exactly how it began before. Small disturbances that your scientists will explain away until it's too late." Nira raised a hand to quiet the growing murmurs. "Commander Reeves, tell us everything. What exactly are we facing?" Reeves stood and approached the star map. "We never truly understood what they were, not biological, not mechanical. Our best scientists believed they existed partially outside normal spacetime." She pointed to where the disturbances had been reported. "They create tiers, rifts where our reality meets theirs. Through these tiers, they extend what we called tendrils, energy structures that consume matter and energy alike." "That's not possible," objected Science Officer Thorin. "Matter cannot simply disappear from the universe." "It doesn't disappear," Reeves replied. "It's converted into something else, something that fuels their expansion. We tracked exponential growth patterns. Each world they consumed made them stronger, able to consume more." She turned to face the assembled aliens. Earth wasn't their first target. We found evidence they had consumed at least 5 other civilizations before reaching our solar system. We tried everything: nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, even experimental gravity weapons. Nothing worked. Conventional attacks passed through them like they weren't even there. "Yet you speak of a weapon," Nira noted. "The Vanguard itself, you said." Reeves nodded. "In our final years, we made a breakthrough. We discovered that the Harbingers weren't invulnerable. They were just operating on a different dimensional plane. Conventional weapons couldn't affect them because they weren't fully in our reality." She tapped commands into the console, bringing up schematics of the Vanguard. "This ship was built around a revolutionary technology we called the Dimensional Displacement Array. It could target the boundary between our dimension and theirs, disrupting their ability to maintain cohesion in our space." The schematics showed a massive array running through the center of the ship, with power systems unlike anything the Zularians had developed. The technology required immense energy and precise targeting. Reeves continued. "Too much for traditional computer systems to manage. That's where the neural integration came in." She touched her temple. "Human minds, specifically trained ones, could process the dimensional calculations with an intuition that computers couldn't replicate. And you're one of these integrated pilots," Valkyr said, her tone caught between skepticism and grudging respect. "I'm the last," Reeves corrected grimly. "The others were defending Earth when it fell." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alert klaxons blared. Lyra's voice came over the command channel. "Captain, we're detecting spatial anomalies directly ahead. Something's forming." "Battle stations," ordered Nira, rising quickly. "All hands prepare for possible engagement." On the bridge, the main view screen showed the empty space before them beginning to distort, as if reality itself was being stretched and pulled like fabric. Colors that shouldn't exist in normal space flickered at the edges of the distortion. "Exactly as I remember," Reeves whispered, her face pale but resolute. The distortion grew, forming what appeared to be a tear in space itself. Through this rift, something began to emerge. Not a ship or creature in any conventional sense, but a shifting mass of energy and darkness that seemed to bend light around it. Tendrils of purplish-black energy extended outward, reaching toward the nearby Zularian vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Nira. "Full power to shields." The celestial Voyager banked sharply, narrowly avoiding the reaching tendrils. The ship's weapons fired automatically, energy beams that passed harmlessly through the entity. "Just as I said," Reeves spoke with grim vindication. "Your weapons passed through them. They're not fully in this dimension." Another tendril lashed out, grazing the ship's shields. Alarms blared as power levels across the vessel dropped dramatically. "It's draining our energy," reported the engineering officer. "Shields failing. We need to return to the Vanguard," Reeves insisted, turning to Nira. "It's the only thing that can stop them." Nira hesitated only for a moment before making her decision. "Set course for the derelict's coordinates, maximum speed. All power to engines." The ship accelerated away from the anomaly, which seemed to pause its pursuit as if assessing this new prey. As they fled, more tiers began to appear in nearby space, small at first, but growing quickly. "They're spreading faster than they did in the Sol system," Reeves observed grimly. "They've grown stronger in the intervening years." 4 hours later, they approached the Vanguard, still drifting where they had left it. The massive human warship seemed even more imposing now that they understood its true purpose. "Dock us directly," ordered Reeves. "I need to get to the command center immediately." As they approached the derelict vessel, the Vanguard systems began activating on their own, lights flickering to life across its hull, docking bays opening in welcome. "It's responding to your presence," Thorin observed in wonder. "The neural link remains active even at a distance," Reeves explained. "The ship knows I've returned." Once aboard, Reeves moved with certainty through the corridors, leading the small team of Zularians toward the command center. The ship hummed with increasing power around them, systems awakening from their long dormancy. In the command center, Reeves strode directly to the central platform, the captain's position, and placed her hands on 2 marked panels. The platform illuminated beneath her, scanning her biometrics. Identity confirmed. Commander Elena Reeves, Neural Integration Pilot Alpha 7, announced the ship's computer in a clear human voice. "Protocol Lazarus in effect." "Welcome back, Commander." "Status report," Reeves commanded. "All primary systems operational. Dimensional displacement array at 89% capacity. Power reserves at 72%. Reeves looked to Nira and her officers. "Better than I expected after all this time." She turned back to the console. "Computer, situational assessment. Void Harbinger presence detected nearby." "Affirmative. Multiple dimensional tiers detected within Sector 17. Pattern consistent with early-stage invasion protocol. Time to full incursion estimated at 37 hours. The Zularians exchanged alarmed glances. This was happening too quickly. "We need to evacuate the nearest settlements," Valkyr insisted. "If what you say is true." "There's no time," Reeves cut her off. "Once they establish a foothold, they spread exponentially. We need to strike now, while they're still consolidating." "Strike how?" questioned Nira. "You said the Vanguard is a weapon, but a single ship against something that consumes worlds." Reeves's expression was grim but determined. "The Vanguard isn't just a ship. It's a dimensional inverter. It can target the rifts and collapse them, sealing the Harbingers on their side of reality." She moved to another console, bringing up schematics of the massive array running through the ship's core. "The displacement array generates a field that temporarily aligns our dimension with theirs, allowing our weapons to affect them directly. When activated at full power, it can collapse their entry points entirely." "And this works?" Thorin asked, studying the schematics with fascination. "It worked once. We sealed a minor incursion near Neptune. That's how we knew it was possible." Reeves's voice grew quieter. "We were building more ships like this one when Earth fell. The Vanguard was the prototype, sent away as insurance in case we failed. And now it's all that stands between us and these harbingers, Nira concluded. Reeves nodded solemnly. Captain, I need to take the Vanguard to the primary incursion point. Your ship should begin evacuating the nearby settlements, just in case. You intend to pilot this vessel alone? Valkyr asked incredulously. It was designed for a crew of hundreds, Thorin added. I won't be alone, Reeves replied, touching her neural implant. When fully linked, I am the ship. That was the purpose of the neural integration program. Nira studied the human carefully. This integration, what does it cost you? Reeves met her gaze steadily. At full capacity, significant neural strain. It's not meant to be maintained for extended periods. You mean it could kill you, Valkyr stated bluntly. Reeves didn't deny it. Earth is gone. My family, my species, all gone. But I was left here for a purpose. To ensure that what happened to humanity doesn't happen to others. After a moment of heavy silence, Nira nodded. We'll evacuate the nearest settlements and return to provide whatever support we can. Thank you, Captain. Reeves extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement that Nira had read about in historical texts. The Zularian captain reached out and grasped the human's forearm in her own version of the gesture. Good hunting, Commander. 6 hours later, the Vanguard approached the primary incursion point where the largest rift had formed. The ancient human warship, once dormant, now pulsed with power, its hull gleaming with activated systems and energy conduits. In the command center, Reeves sat in the neural interface chair, multiple connections linked to her implants. Her eyes were closed in concentration as information flowed directly into her mind. Sensor data, weapon status, power levels, all becoming extensions of her consciousness. Multiple Harbinger entities detected, she reported, both aloud and through the ship's communication systems. The rift is 78% formed, still within closure parameters. The celestial Voyager maintained position at a safe distance, monitoring the situation. On its bridge, Captain Nira and her officers watched as the human warship approached the spatial tear. The energy readings from that ship are off the scale, reported Thorin in awe. Whatever technology they're using, it's nothing like we've ever seen. Look, Lyra pointed to the view screen. The rift, it's changing. The spatial tear seemed to pulse and expand as the Vanguard approached, as if sensing a threat. More tendrils emerged, dozens now, reaching toward the human vessel with clear purpose. Inside the Vanguard, Reeves felt the neural interface deepen as she activated the displacement array. Pain lanced through her mind as the connection intensified, but she pushed through it, focusing on the task at hand. Initiating dimensional alignment, she announced, her voice strained, array powering to full capacity. The Vanguard's hull began to shimmer with an otherworldly light as the massive array running through its center activated. The space around the ship distorted slightly, as if reality itself was being bent around it. The Harbinger tendrils reached the Vanguard, but instead of passing through as they did with conventional matter, they recoiled upon contact, as if burned. It's working, Reeves whispered, a grim smile crossing her features. Firing main displacement cannons. Massive energy weapons along the Vanguard's hull fired simultaneously, not beams of light or plasma, but concentrated bursts of what appeared to be folded space itself. These blasts struck the tendrils, and for the first time, caused visible damage. The alien entities recoiled, portions of their mass dissolving into nothingness. The rift pulsed violently, more tendrils emerging with increasing speed. No longer testing, but attacking with purpose. The Vanguard maneuvered with impossible precision, avoiding some strikes while countering others with its weapons. They recognized the threat, Reeves reported through gritted teeth. They remember us. Aboard the celestial Voyager, the Zularians watched in stunned silence as the ancient human warship battled entities they could barely comprehend. The ship moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its size, each action perfectly timed and executed. It's like watching a dancer, whispered Lara. How can one person control such a massive vessel with that precision? The neural link, Thorin replied softly. She's not giving commands. She is the ship. The battle intensified as the Harbingers focused their full attention on the vanguard. Tendrils lashed from all directions, some beginning to penetrate the dimensional field around the ship. Damage reports flashed across monitoring screens as sections of the hull were breached. Hull integrity compromised in sections 12 through 17, Reeves reported, blood now trickling from her nose as the neural strain increased. We're routing power to maintain the array. On the command deck of the Celestial Voyager, alarms suddenly blared. Captain, called out the sensor officer. We're detecting more rifts forming, not just here, but throughout the sector. There are 17 new incursion points forming. Neera's scales paled. They're adapting, spreading out to avoid being bottlenecked. The communication system crackled as Reeves's voice came through. I see them. The array can't target multiple rifts simultaneously, not from this distance. A pause then. There's only one option left. Commander, what are you planning? Neera demanded. The Vanguard has one final protocol, Reeves explained, her voice eerily calm despite the chaos surrounding her. A complete dimensional inversion. It can collapse all rifts within a 50 light-year radius simultaneously. And the ship? Valkyr asked, already suspecting the answer. The process consumes the vessel entirely. It's a one-way trip. Silence fell over the asterisk.